All right, it's time. The launch day for Champions of Chaos, also for update 2.0 for Total War Warhammer 3. This is going to be the thing that brings Immortal Empires into your campaign. It's a great day for all, plus the Blood Pack. That's version 3 of the Blood Pack. So if you own Blood Pack, I think either for Game 1 or Game 2, you get Game 3's Blood Pack for free. You can find all that information, all that stuff on Steam. So guys, happy launch day to everyone. Thank you so much for joining me all the way up to this point of pre-release and going through some of the content ahead of time. Hopefully it's made today easier for you and deciding what you want to jump into and what you want to play. I have a whole series of videos coming out that are going to highlight is it right for you style of video for every single race. So I'll be doing the Warriors of Chaos one that'll be coming out here tomorrow. Just kind of going through the Warriors of Chaos Legendary Lords to help you decide which one to choose. So before we jump into these patch notes, if you have not yet picked up Champions of Chaos, you can use the link in the description in the pinned comment that is to Creative Assembly's reseller program. So if you want to pick the game up through them and support the channel, that link is active for the next week. So please feel free to use that or whatever means necessary to get access to Champions of Chaos. Let's go through these patch notes because they are huge. Even it says much anticipated update 2.0 is here and it's a biggie. Actually, scratch that, it's humongous. So let's have fun talking about patch 2.0 for Total War Warhammer 3. We're accompanied here by the lovely sounds of the High Elf soundtrack from Warhammer 2, because why the hell else would I listen to any other soundtrack? So here's just a sampling of the big improvements coming with 2.0. Demon factions will no longer automatically declare war on non-demon factions. That's huge, by the way. Alongside attack and defend requests, you can now ask allies to occupy settlements, including colonizing ruins. This is really huge for the new Warriors of Chaos mechanic. We've rebalanced Confederation, so it's harder to confederate minor factions, but easier to confederate major ones. So it kind of basically takes the bar and equalizes it, rather than just making one easier or one harder than the other. We've completely overhauled the front end and faction select UI for improved usability, and it's kind of a UI improvement that I didn't know I wanted, but it's great. Also, new UI when you're actually playing the game. Oh, I hope you can't hear me rubbing my hands together. I put lotion on. That's odd. But on the battle side, we've improved the battle AI's capture point behavior, its target priority regarding barricades and enemy units, and the effectiveness of its melee and range unit positioning. So while that all might be true, I am finding that the AI on the campaign map seems to be a little bit more passive, and you guys can let me know what your experiences have been with stuff up to this point. We've adjusted reload time reductions for range units so they're easier to understand and don't scale to the point where stacked reload reduction buffs make range units overperform outrageously. Most Warhammer 1 and 2 factions have undergone some level of overhauling for Immortal Empires, some to a lesser and some to a greater extent, with years of tweaks and balances ahead for the game mode. Ooh, I like that. I like that little note. With years of tweaks and balances ahead for the game mode. I already have a video planned for that on why I think Empire is the next thing to get touched. Whatever. Alright, so moving into this, guys, I have not read these patch notes. We're going to go through this together. I started to read it and I'm like, screw it, let's just do this together. So remember, this Immortal Empires is a beta. It's initially going to be launching as a beta as they kind of deal with a lot of stuff. And to be totally fair, Immortal Empires is in a better state than Mortal Empires was at launch. The things that I find to be the biggest hangups with Immortal Empires are relegated more to campaign AI reactions and less to load time, usability, stuff like that Mortal Empires suffered from. So I will say that's pretty cool. So make sure you're submitting any kind of bugs, any kind of issue that you're having with Immortal Empires, because it is huge. So this kind of goes into our requirement here for Immortal Empires. You need Warhammer 1 and 2, but you only need 3 installed. So that's crucial to know. With the big features here, of course, 86 Legendary Lords. Be'lakor now has his own faction. I would argue this is the FLC, or the closest thing to it for this DLC, because he is a beautiful synthesis of both Warriors of Chaos and Demons of Chaos faction. It's probably one of the best, or at least one of the most interesting Warriors of Chaos factions. Not to say that the other ones are boring, because trust me, they're stupid strong. Dedicated factions for Grombendal, Helman, Volkmar, Sigvald, and Kolek, and they're all lovely, especially the latter two. We'll go into those in their own video. New starting locations for 29 Lords, improved personal faction mechanics, new sea lanes, new dynamic endgame scenarios. I don't know all of them. There's quite a few, and people have been able to see a lot of these so far, so It kind of makes the late game a little more fun. Revamped victory conditions. There's now a short, medium and long victory condition, I guess you could say. Like, I think it's short, long, and then like total domination. And the total domination is like capture 272 territories, and boom, you win. So it's a nice way to, I'm just going to jump into a short form game and only capture 3 or destroy 3 factions, capture these settlements, and call it a day. So I actually really like the victory condition change. Corruption rework here, as well as 8-player multiplayer campaigns. So a lovely change of pace. Now we have the Champions of Chaos Lord pack. Linked in the upper right hand corner, you'll be able to see the playlist for all of the Is It Right For You, so you can get an idea of which one of these 4 lords you're going to want to play with first. And I don't really want to go through it because I think we've talked about it quite a bit here, but here. So this is a free update to players for the Blood for the Blood God. Free update for players who have already purchased the Blood for the Blood God pack for either 1 or 2 Total War Warhammer. And will be available immediately to owners on Steam after downloading the Immortal Empires update. Microsoft and Epic Store users see below. So you can see that. So now you can also tweak these things. There's sliders in the game menu to tweak the amount of staining and stuff like that with blood. So you have a lot of ways to kind of tweak them and stuff like that, which I actually really enjoy. Some stability perks here. Fix the crash that would occur during AI army recruitment. Fix a rare crash triggered by players leaving their multiplayer campaign. A bunch of fixes here for this. I'm not going to highlight as many of these because I fixed a soft lock triggered when using diplomacy to threaten a faction who then declared war on the player as a response. That's so specific of a scenario that I don't really find that a lot of people suffer from it. But you can correct me if I'm wrong. It didn't pop out to me, is what I'm trying to say. For gameplay, rules and systems, diplomacy. This is the new allied system now, so it's a little bit easier to get an idea of where things are on the map. You have a really nice way to kind of coordinate stuff, and it has its own button, so you don't have to get into the layered portion of the diplomacy. It's in the upper right hand corner of the screen. You see the little crossed hammers, this little symbol right here where it says allegiance, the point symbol. For those watching on mobile, it's the, I'm looking at the preview, like, is it highlighting the same thing I'm highlighting? But yeah, it's that the little crossed hammers of Sigmar. You'd go ahead and click the Galmarazes, and you would get access to the screen, and it is a great way to just kind of see all this stuff. I will say, though, that while I was really excited for allies and vassals, now that I've got it's such a big part of the Warriors of Chaos, I kind of, maybe it's because I'm playing the Warriors of Chaos and the outpost portion is just lackluster because I don't care about outposts when I'm playing like fighting or using Warriors of Chaos and Norska, but it feels a little lackluster. Like right now with ally missions and request armies and stuff like that. I think with other factions, like if I'm playing High Elves and I get an outpost with, say, the Dwarfs or with Empire, I think it's going to be pretty fun. But when you play Warriors of Chaos, for example, it's not. It's definitely one you don't need to worry about. But rebalance the base aversion for several factions, generally improving their relations with others. This is most beneficial to the Ogre Kingdoms, and reduce the amount of threat generated by all factions. This is the thing that kind of makes the AI feel a little less aggressive on the field. Factions will now once again consider previous positive and negative events related to dead factions when interacting with live ones. Players will no longer receive reliability rating penalties when forced into war via an Elector Count's Dilemma, which is lovely. Reduce the relative likelihood of war declarations, and rebalance the amount of gold offered in gifts, as was previously more efficient to send numerous small gifts rather than a single large gift. I did not know that. Reduce the number of deals the AI can make from 3 to 2 per turn. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. Friendly factions will no longer charge their ally player with ultimatums. Reduce the base allegiance cost of loaning armies as well. So Demon War Declaration. While lore appropriate, the automatic declaration of war by the demon factions led to several undesirable behaviors, such as preventing factions exploring the map to avoid triggering a war. This is notable in Immortal Empires, where Chaos factions are more likely to encounter non-Chaos factions early in the campaign. So we've removed the automatic war declaration behavior from most of the factions who previously had it, the exception being those that are opponents in the Realm of Chaos campaign and emerge from rifts. Okay, I can expect that. I can appreciate that, and I've noticed it too playing through Be'lakor, where it's like, oh, these people just don't like me out the gate, rather than just immediately being at war with me. And it's nice because it just means that exploring the map doesn't lead to all these wars on multiple fronts. So it's quite nice, and especially again if you're playing Be'lakor and you're sending heroes out to steal research and to what's it called, wound and mark other players, you're not automatically getting war declared on you, which is kind of nice. And same thing here with all of the other respective Demons of Chaos units, or factions. Confederation is now slightly harder to confederate minor factions, but considerably easier to confederate major factions. We already know about that one. Apart from Kislev and the Greenskins, AI major factions will no longer confederate each other outside of extremely rare circumstances. Quick, water break. Alright, back at it. Embedded hero bonuses. Addition of new marked exile heroes, or exalted heroes. The hero embedded effects requires some adjusting to avoid overlapping. Now apply, Blood Reapers now apply increased mobility, and Plague Ridden now apply increased replenishment, which is nice. Battle reinforcement times. The estimated reinforcement time during battles are now always accurate, which is nice. Reload time reduction. Now this is more linked to the devs tweaking of reload time, and it as a means to not be overpowered. I'm not really going to go through this because to me, it's been changed. Fine with it. I'm cool with them doing that to make it so that they don't get disgustingly overpowered. Remove the innate reload time reduction from all non-regiments of renown, and reduce the innate reload reduction for regiments from 30% to 18%. Maybe this is linked to veterancy, right? It goes into it right here. Standardize the effect of rank on reload time. Rank 9 should now always equate to a minus 18 reload time reduction in reload time, because that's what a regiment renown unit comes out at rank 9. The actual damage output of more. Oh, okay. So what they've done in the UI now is a unit. The unit stat card will actually represent that damage more accurately, which I kind of like. It's always kind of been funky. So altered the minimum reload time value displayed in the UI from 2 to 4 seconds. Note that this is purely a display change and will have no impact on actual reload times. And wounds. Once the wounds ability has been triggered by dropping below 25% health threshold on single entity unit, it will now remain active for the remaining duration of the battle. Okay. I know that was kind of, if it was healed beyond or back up above the threshold, it would lose wounds, I believe, as noted in the dev note. So this kind of, and this will be crucial for stuff like Hydras, right, which can get a burst of healing, or Phoenixes, which can get a burst of healing. So I think it kind of, you know, actually in saying that, I think it kind of makes those two units in specific, which have that burst of healing as part of a nice trade-off of using them, kind of hamstrings them, right? Like, okay, a Phoenix is supposed to, oh, it's got like no health, and it, boom, it explodes and it's reborn anew, but it's wounded? Like, So I have to see if that actually triggers with the ability to have the unit auto heal through its own abilities, right? Like the Hydra, oh, okay, it's losing its heads, and it gets to a certain threshold, it'll get a heal, and that heal puts it above the wounds threshold. So does that mean it retains the wounds ability? That's kind of shit for something that's part of the unit's profile. So I think I agree with this, with the ability to heal a single entity unit beyond its cap. But if you're talking about something that has the ability to do it innately as part of its lore or part of its innate skill set, I think that's kind of shit. So for AI rules and logic, campaign AI factions without a region, including hordes, will no longer use sue for peace. Implemented a new system which guides AI expansion and which allows for targeted regions to evolve depending on the state of the game. Ooh. Fixed instances where Hellebron's Blood Voyage would raid the ruins of settlements after they've already been razed, and fix an issue which would result in rogue armies going inactive for several dozen turns. Improve the AI's stance selection to logic to help avoid attrition, and AI logic improvements when they use rights, commandments, and occupy a settlement, as well as anti-player bias has been reduced from the Immortal Empires campaign. Okay. And we've seen that for anyone who's watched any of the Immortal Empires coverage, they are way more passive on the campaign map, as I've said now 3 times here. So we'll see how that kind of plays out. I hope it makes for ultimately a better long-term campaign rather than feeling so rushed and kind of besieged in the beginning that by the mid-late game, like, well, the pace has changed. I went from always being attacked to never being attacked. And I feel like if I go from relative peace to crazy hecticness, always having to defend all my borders, I like that as a means of growth. So I'd have to expand on it on a later date to see how it goes when I make a much larger empire. Updated the AI to prevent them from prioritizing the ownership of regions in an adjacent province once over regions in the province they already own, assuming that they are both equal. Okay, interesting. Faction features. So 10-1 can now use his pyramid features. Nakai can now use his temple features. Dwarf and Tomb King factions can now use crafting. Claw has been told to stop worrying and learn to love the bomb. So the problems with the bomb have been fixed. Vampire counts now gain and use blood kisses as normal, meaning their access to bloodline lords should feel much more natural, and Sisters of Twilight can use the Forge of Days. And remember, guys, this is for the AI, not for you. So the AI will actually take advantage of these. And for those wondering, when it comes to the Warriors of Chaos, their new mechanics, the AI does take advantage of them. It does build out dark fortresses and all those sorts of things, because I watched it. Military force generation and utilization. Previously, we could only use overarching groups such as melee infantry when determining how the AI groups its units. In Warhammer 3, we now have much better control, allowing us to produce several subgroups within the melee infantry group. Okay, interesting. So this should maybe make the AI have not just better force organization, but better army comps, hopefully. So rebalance the priority assigned by the AI to each unit through their rosters. Beyond turn 50, the AI will now actively explore the map once it is in a strong position to do so. This replaces the old system where the owner of major ports were revealed at turn 75. Interesting. The AI will now place more weight on its overall balance of power rather than its local balance of power when evaluating its strategic situation, and retired the old army morale system now that no factions use it, eliminating cases where the AI would retreat for seemingly no reason. The AI will now only attempt to colonize a settlement when the colonizing force is at or near full health. Okay, cool. Prevents the AI from just becoming a brittle nothing force. For the battle AI, improve the capture behavior. The AI will no longer place melee units in areas more suitable for their missile units during battles, and improved how the AI prioritizes their attacks between barricades and enemy units. I guess in my experience, I've noticed some of this, but I also haven't noticed a ton of it, so I have to play more battles to see how this actually feels. For races and balanced, starting armies have all been adjusted and equalized across all factions. Some gained and some lost units. A big example of this would be Cetra. Cetra lost lots. Factions without a region or those with more challenging start positions retain slightly larger armies to account for their disadvantage. High tier units have been removed from the armies of lords who do not offer specific effects for them. So if they get no bonuses, then they do not get those units. I guess an example would be, well, Cetra lost Tomb Guard, and I thought he has bonuses for Tomb Guard. Maybe they added it back in. I'd have to check it out, but basically, if they don't get a Lord effect bonus on it, then they don't get them in their army. Kolek gives bonuses to Dragon Ogres, so he starts with Dragon Ogres. Now, economy supply lines in Immortal Empires have been set to normal 1%, hard 2%, very hard 4%, and legendary 4%. So it's now difficulty linked to your supply line, which I think is a little bit better, and increase the background income for all major factions from 25 to 3,000 gold on all difficulties. Garrison budgets have been equalized across the board, now falling between Warhammer 2 and 3. 2 Mortal Empires and 3 Realm of Chaos amounts. Some factions have additional units on the same budget, while others have less. We will revisit heroes as part of the specific and special buildings, as well as specific locations, providing unique garrisons in the future. For buildings here, Elf Gates, Empire Forts, and Bastions now use a standardized set of rules across all factions and races, and the generic primary settlement chain will always be used as a fallback. Duplicate building chains previously created for unique locations have been removed, and we've reconfigured the system which determines which buildings are available in what locations. Building income here. So recategorize ports into one of 3 categories: top, medium, and low. Norska and Vampire Coast ports remain in the top class. The majority of races construct medium-class ports, which have been adjusted to Warhammer 3 income values, 100, 200, and 400 respectively at tiers 1, 3, and 5. Lizardmen, Skaven, and Greenskins construct low-class ports, which actually give you 75, 150, and 300 gold. Special ports have had their income values adjusted to 200, 400, and 800 gold. So, what is top class then? Oh my god, I don't know what top class is at the top of my head, clearly. I wonder if top class is more on the line with special ports. So I guess we'll have to see how that plays out. In addition to general income, building incomes, adjusted several landmarks to avoid disrupting the economic balance, adjusted the income values of damaged buildings, Oh yeah, and I've seen this, which would sometimes provide greater than intended income. So having a damaged building is a pretty substantial percentage drop on the income. Remove of any benefit that it gives. Remove the adjacency increases to income from building, because that was causing a lot of craziness. Kislevian Ducat. Replace the resource income bonus with a settlement income bonus instead. Building costs increase the cost of settlement chain upgrades for all races. And we've streamlined building costs into 3 distinct bands. So low cost, Greenskin, Norskin, Skaven. High cost, Chaos Dwarfs, High Elves, and Wood Elves. You heard it here first, guys. Chaos Dwarfs confirmed. Then medium cost, all other races. Interesting. Building times increase the settlement... Increase the time to complete settlement upgrades by 1 to 2 turns. Reduce the infrastructure build up while maintaining other construction times. So a lot of changes to those. And again, falling into slow, medium, and fast building times. Slow, Demon Prince, Khorne, Slaanesh, basically demons, Tomb Kings, Lizardmen, and Wood Elves. Medium building times, all human factions, except for Norskins, and all elf factions except for the Wood Elves, as well as the Vampire Counts, Coast, and Warriors of Chaos. Then fast building times, Ogre Kingdoms, Skaven, Greenskin, Norska. Interesting, okay. I've reduced the previous increase to hero capacities, Beastman recruitment capacity reduced to 2 in Hordes, reduced to 2, 3, 3, 4, 4 in settlements. Greenskin's capacity increased by 1, same thing with Skaven, same thing with Tomb Kings, okay. Immortality now is an auto gain at level 20, which I love. You don't waste that skill point. I love, love, love that. Water break. We've had some other things change here too. So for Lore of High Magic, it has had a bit of a retooling. Magic in general has had a lot of retooling actually. So Fiery Convocation now does more or less AP damage and less AP damage when overcast. Tempest, though, now affects flying units, not just flying creatures, and its effect range is increased from 20 to 35. Replace cannot move debuff with minus 60% speed, and it lasts a second longer, and overcast makes it last less as long. Cooldown is also faster. Lore of Dark Magic has Power of Darkness uses 3 to 2. Soul Stealer wins of magic costs 18 to 16. Lore of Life regrowth bonus to Vigor minus 100% to minus 5%. But that's different now, I guess, right? Since the Vigor stat in Warhammer 3 applies throughout the duration of the ability or spell, we rebalance the old values to mirror the original. Okay. So rather than being a flat bonus, like, hey, here's 100%, this is minus 5% for the duration of the spell, stacking up. Lore of Death, Aspect of the Dread Knight, had an added Can Cause Fear and Can Cause Terror attributes. Wind of Death has had its Winds of Magic cost reduced by 5, as well as its Overcast by 7. And Lore of Fire has had Burning Head damage per second increase from 12 to 20, and its Overcast from 18 to 30. So juicy. Traits in general, though, knowledgeable now increases the rate of experience gained by 20%. Barded horses are all now automatic. The horse and Barded horse have been combined into a single unit. The Barded horse for the Empire, Bretonia, High Elves, Vampire Counts, and Warriors of Chaos races. Dragons adjusted the armor, health, and mass of dragon units to allow them to deal with being mobbed by infantry, and retain the breath attack stats from Warhammer 2, meaning they'll perform slightly better in Warhammer 3, and reduce the multiplayer cost to make them more accessible in the competitive environment. Speaking of, let's go now into some race balances. Starting with Taurox. For the most part here, we're not going to see a ton of changes because this is one of the more recent ones to get changes. Taurox, the Brass Bowl here. Did I say Taurox? Starting with Taurox. Starting with the Beastman. He has a melee attack bonus that's been reduced a little bit here. Harpies and Wargors have had their cost change here. Harpies are now cheaper and Wargors are now cheaper as well. For abilities, we're going to see a melee attack bonus on Barbed Knuckle Boxing going down by 1, and Slaughterer's Call going down by 2. And the Dark Mail for Khazrak One-Eye now provides 20 armor and 25% spell resistance. Into Bretonia, who is in desperate need of a rework, Damsel's added action Replenish. Mounted Yeomen now do more melee attack. They got more melee attack, I'm sorry. They do more base damage. They got a little bit more armor piercing, bigger charge bonus, and a little increase to their mass here across the board. The Green Knight also has gotten a big buff. by increasing his hit points, increasing his AP damage, almost doubling it. Almost. It's like 30 points short of being doubled. That's actually not true at all. 560 would be double. I'm great at math. Stellar at it, actually. Physical resistance has gone down, though, by 15% and removed 150 base weapon. Ooh, I didn't see that part. That's actually not too fun. And added contact frostbite. So at least he'll slow things down, and he'll be doing a 430 just raw AP damage to the face. So that's kind of juicy in and of itself. For the demons, the Demon Prince no longer requires demonic glory to access mortal units, and Battle of the Demon Prince's icon no longer clips out of the frame when at low health, and the recruitment of cost effects for Nurgle and Khorne units in Demon Prince roster should now function as intended. Mission Claim the Capital now properly awards the player with 60 undivided glory. Into the Dark Elves, we have the new slave system. This basically allows them to have these ditkas that they can use in their settlements that will give them one of 3 bonuses. And I've covered all of this in its respective video in the upper right hand corner. Or for general updates with all of the faction characters, the Dark Elf characters. So Malekith, upkeep cost reductions are now smaller but apply faction-wide to help him fight on multiple fronts. Parts of his Tyrant skill tree are now attached to his base Lord effect, which is cool. Malice, the effects of the possession bar have been changed. It now is possible to use Zarkan at lower possession levels, though doing so will immediately increase his possession. And also for Malice, high possession now applies faction-wide, and Slanesh corruption now replaces its former penalties. For Morathi, now spreads and benefits from Slanesh corruption and can recruit a variety of Demonite units. For Rakarth, now based on the western coast of Lustria, where he has access to several new beasts in his monster pens: giant spiders, feral wyverns, feral bears, feral ice bears, and saber-tusk packs. With the Corsairs, though, they're getting a bit of a buff to their damage, both their base weapon and their AP damage going up by 4 and 3 respectively. The Corsair handbows getting that same exact buff as well. The Black Dragon getting more health, gaining more armor, a lot more mass, but also a reduction in its multiplayer cost and overall benefit to them. Blackguard of Nagaron have added ability Murderous Mastery, which is lovely here. The Bleak Swords are going to be getting 4 more base damage and 3 more AP as well. Bloodrack Medusa is getting more ammo, more melee attack and defense. The Shrine getting more ammo as well. Cauldron of Blood getting more health. Chill of Sontar, the absolute best Hydra on the land, getting better damage on its Frost Breath attack and more AP on its Frost Breath attack, which is already one of the strongest Frost Breath attacks in the game because it attacks at the ground level, meaning it can completely destroy a unit. Cold One Dread Knights getting more melee defense as well as their non-Dread Knight counterparts. The Dark Riders getting more damage as well as AP as well. Same thing with the Shield, melee defense being increased in the Shield variant as well by 2. Dark Shards with Shields getting a multiplayer cost reduction. Doomfire Warlocks getting a melee defense increase. Dread Spears getting 10 more armor. Harganeth Executioners getting 2 more melee attack and gaining ITP, Immune to Psychology. Harpies getting a reduction in their cost, as well as the Charybdis getting a reduction in their multiplayer cost. Knights of the Even Claw going up in melee defense with added ability Primal, with added passive ability Primal Instincts. An interesting choice, but Primal Instincts has changed, so there's that. We'll go into that in a bit. Masters had a significant multiplayer cost reduction, and the Morathi has had a 150 gold increase. Shades with dual weapons have had their base and AP damage increased. Shades with great swords have had a 100 gold reduction. The Sisters of Slaughter also have had a melee attack increase and multiplayer cost reduction. And you know, for the rest of these, for the future races, I'm not going to go through every single little one. I'll just kind of quickly go over more of their abilities and stuff that has changed from the faction as a whole. Witch Elves, though, have had an increase with their melee attack and their base damage and their AP and a reduction in gold. But for abilities, though, Beast Lord's Gaze for Rakarth now has a 10% damage resistance effect. Beast Slaver for Rakarth now has a 34-second duration. Blood Frenzy for Crone Hellebron now uses intensity scaling, so armor piercing effect from 6, 12, 18 to 10, 20, 25 in each phase respectively. Enchanting Beauty for Morathi inflicts melee attack impairment from -8 to -5 now. Merciless Slaver for Lokier Fellheart is a -6 debuff to leadership. And the Demon's Curse for Malice Darkblade no longer deals damage to self. It lasts 34 seconds, has a cooldown of 2 minutes, and inflicts a leadership buff of -16 to -10. And Whiplash for High Beastmaster now affects only non-character units rather than large entities. So we've changed the item availability for the Master Hero unit, replaced the Helm of Many Eyes with the Crown of Command. The Circlet of Iron for Malekith, altered from a Hex to an Augment. Added effect minus 50% miscast chance. Added effect plus 80% wins a magic recharge rate. Destroyer for Malekith now has minus 20% spell resistance. Heartrender and Dark Sword melee attack buff, melee attack debuff has gone from 8 to 5 and defense from minus 10 to minus 5. Hydra Blade has had a reduction. Most of this Pearl of Infinite Blackness and Bleakness and Hydra Blade have had a multiplayer cost reduction. Supreme Spell Shield for Malekith, added spell effect, 20% spell resistance, and Whip of Agony for Rakarth no longer requires a specific target unit type. Multiplayer cost minus 50 gold. Good lord, that was just the Dark Elves. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but we've gotten quite a few increases here, mainly to the ancestral spirits for the dwarfs. You can see these all right here. Into Grand Cathay, a lot of updates here. Units with formation attack attribute now correctly gain 8 melee defense as intended. This addition is now mentioned in the formation attack text. The value used to grant campaign movement range bonus to Yin or Yang armies is now working as intended. Ancestral Warriors here, I've gotten a little bit of a buff with Blossom Wind spell. Has gotten a bit of a buff as well to its damage, its radius, all those good things. For greenskins, first off, 2 new greenskin abilities have had their durations increased to make them feel more impactful, as we found they'd previously time out before having any real impact on the battle. These are Smash 'em Faster and Sneaky Stabbin'. Okay, so a lot of bonuses across the board. I'm looking at mainly upkeep reduction here, or upkeep increase for AP Loonies. Unbreakable to Debigun Rogue Idol, that's kind of nice here. Melee defense increased for the Black Orcs, which is juicy. I love that. Azag has gotten a increase in his health across the board on both Skullmuncher and on foot. The River Trolls got a little bit of a buff across everything. Look at Grimgor got a pretty significant increase in hit points. Same thing with Grom the Paunch. About only a little less than 500 for Grom. Crimson Killers got a huge buff. Melee defense up, melee attack up, base weapon base weapon damage and AP damage. I almost threw it right there. Also increased charge bonus increase and 8 bonus versus infantry. Pretty significant for them. Stoutling Pumpwagon got an increase here. Expendable on the Wolfriders, the Moonhowlers. So pretty much all the regiments of renown got a touch, as it were. The Night Goblin Warboss now has stock. A lot of gold changes here for a lot of the recruitment and upkeep for a lot of things in the army. Rogue Idols in general just have Unbreakable now. A lot of hit point increases too across the board. So it seems to be almost everything has gotten an upkeep reduction if I'm looking at this. Boar Boy Big Guns, 237 to 214. Night Goblin Fanatics, okay, 125 to 131, so that's a slight increase. Night Goblin Archers, so Night Goblin's got a little bit of a increase with their what's it called? Upkeep. But for the most part, an overall good roundabout for them. Sneaky Stabbin' goes from 19 to 40 seconds, and Edbutt went from 7 to 5 and 12 to 9 respective wins of magic for base and overcast. Smash 'em Faster now goes from 18 to 30 seconds as well. So lots of good little buffs here for the greenskins. For the High Elves, let's see. The range units, what else? Like Martial Prowess, Martial Mastery remain active for longer. Well, yeah, that's obviously the biggest one. Is Martial Mastery and Martial Prowess don't trip off at 25% health anymore. I'm sorry, they don't shut off at 50% health. They now shut off at 25% health. So they get to access those abilities for far longer. Frostfire Phoenix, the Blizzard Aura ability now also reduces enemy movement speed and charge speed by 12% each. Ooh, and they get Frostbite now. Reduction in their multiplayer cost. Moon Dragons overall have gotten a huge buff, just like the Dark Dragon, so armor, hit points, mass, and cost reductions. Phoenix Guard Regiments Renowned, Phoenix Guard have had their mass slightly increased. It appears all dragons have gotten armor, hit point, and mass increases across the board, coming from 2 into 3. Silver Helms recruitment system to better match their current power level, which is shit. Their power level is shit. Silver Helm recruitment cost is 900 to 850 gold, and the recruitment cost is 1,950. Put their upkeep lower, and I'll use them more. I think that's kind of like the only thing you can do, because they're just so crap. Again, Martial Prowess and Martial Mastery from 50% to 25%. Primal Rage to scale with intensity setting Warhammer 3. Primal Rage now scales based off the amount of time spent engaged in melee, up to 25% base and 25% armor piercing weapon damage. Sword of Teclis here now has 30 to 23 second duration. Now grants bonus Winds of Magic reserves per second, and now grants Spell Mastery, which is lovely. Shadow Walkers are now available to use in competitive play. Khorne here hasn't had a ton of changes, but mainly reduced the innate movement granted after raising a settlement via Scarbrand's faction from 25 to 15%. Same thing with the Blood Hosts. So across the board, you can see that is just kind of just scale things for Immortal Empires. Reduce Scarbrand's innate post-battle movement bonus from 35 to 25%, and reduce the duration of Skull Throne Ritual to 5 turns, can no longer be maintained at 100% uptime. Furies have had a reduction here, a little bit of a tweak to the Minotaurs and their Frenzy passive ability. They now have access to it. Now benefit from 50% spell resistance. Same thing with the Great Weapon variant. Moving into Kislev, the penalties inflicted by the Chaos Wasteland climate on Boris Ursus have been reduced, and Boris Ursus now generates devotion from holding Chaos Wasteland settlements, as well as Boris Ursus wings now visible on his campaign map model. The Snow Leopard domination capture rate 5 to 4. The Lizardman has had a huge amount of changes here, as well. So Krokgar's faction effects have been entirely revamped and now focus on Scar veterans and Old Bloods. Not only will be able to recruit them earlier, but will gain a scaling weapon strength buff for every level they have gained, which is, trust me, it's huge. Gorak has a new set of faction and lord effects that lean more into his defensive nature. His unique right has been revamped. Rather than granting unbreakable Desarses, which was most useful when losing and substantially annoying to counter, it now grants him barrier and immunity to contact effects like poison, which is so strong. Oxyodal's special missions now target demon factions and will scale better with campaign difficulty. 10-1 now unlocks Regiments of Renown by leveling up, like other factions. His Pyramid instead offers a repeatable way to get blessed spawnings. On top of new starting positions in Exotic Cathay, Nakai has received a revamp to the effects received from his Temple of the Old One system. In addition, his tech tree has been updated to provide better economic scaling over the course of the campaign, substantially improving his ability to sustain multiple hordes. Also, with Master Money and Croak, they will enjoy several updates to their skill trees to keep them up to top tier casters, offering them new effects like Barrier and Spell Mastery. So there are some great things there. A lot of hit points and ammunition and cost reductions and changes across the board. Melee defense for the Feral Dread Saurian increased by 2. A lot of changes here for them. Primal Instincts, though. So this is the big one. So it no longer triggers Rampage, which is massive. Increase the melee attack bonus from 8 to 10. Added effect 5% physical resistance, increase the trigger threshold from 25 to 50%. Because now that it's a bonus, might as well have a trigger earlier. So Primal Instincts applies to the Regiment of Renown, or I'm sorry, the Ebon Guard, the Dark Elf unit, that the special Dark Elf unit on Cold Ones. So they get Primal Instincts now, like this, not the Rampage one, which is just lovely. So all the other ones that also had it too, they're going to get these bonuses, which are huge, and you have all these units that now have access to it. Star Chamber Guardian, Stegodon, Temple Guard, Shredder of Lustria, Thunderous One, all these things. And then a little bit of a change here for Nakai for his stuff like the Golden Tributes, the Primal Roar, all this kind of stuff. And then the Deliverance of Itza has had its damage change from 40 to 30 across all 3 of its abilities, but its AP damage has gone down from 22 to 10, 37 to 20, and 52 to 30. For Norska, a lot of different changes here have happened. The 4 big dedications to the Allegiance of the Gods, the Hounds, Raven, Serpent, and Crow, gets you access to Kilgore Slay Maim for Hound, which is basically an Exalted Hero of Khorne. Raven gives you Arzik the Maze Keeper, can now access the Lore of Tzeentch spell set. And Serpent is the Lore of Slaanesh, a sorcerer of Slaanesh, as you would imagine. And the Crow gives you a Great Unclean One, Burple Smirk Spew Spit. Some tweaks to the units here. Abilities, for the most part, though, are ultimately the same. This kind of different intensity values for, say, Berserk and Rage and whatnot. Sea Fang's damage has been tweaked from base damage 54 to 36 and AP from 27 to 20. Going into Nurgle, a lot of changes here more apply to, what's his name? Festus, who has a ton of stuff to benefit from. Warhounds Poison have been added to the unit roster in the campaign and custom battle modes. Plague Bearers and Nurgle now properly receive melee defense bonuses granted by Armor of Malady as well. Updated the global recruitment boon effects received in Tzeentch's realm to grant cost reduction to recruitment as well here. Ogre Kingdoms, not a whole ton, but Greases can now equip followers only intended for tyrants. Now equip Yeah, oh, yeah. AI Ogre Kingdoms factions will now select big names, which is good. For the Skaven, not a ton has really happened, but in battle, the Skaven are getting a small boost to their power levels required to take on the demonic factions in Warhammer 3. Of note, the Veil of Shadow spell, available via the Skaven Spells of Stealth, will receive a significant cost reduction, allowing it to be used more often as an area denial tool. Much of the infantry roster are receiving buffs to give the Skaven slightly better frontline options. Warplector Zales will penetrate through one model, just like Cathay's Crane Gunners, and Doomflayers and Doomwheels are getting significant buffs to make them viable in larger variety of matchups. So, a lot of stuff just kind of, a lot of stuff that we've seen from, say, Cathay has been has been brought into this. Doomflayers, for example, getting an increase to their melee attack and defense from 26 to 30, 22 to 26, and their Doomwheel increase from hit points is 2,300 to 6,300, a full 1,000 point increase right there. And the rest of this is just pretty much multiplayer costs, melee attack bonuses here and there, mainly to just make it so they can actually hit things a little bit better across the board. Melee defense change on Queek from 43 to 46 here. I'm looking for any Warplock to Zales projectiles now penetrate one entity and their increase in multiplayer cost. Death Frenzy now also boosts armor piercing by 30% when active. Spells of Ruin Crack's Call has had a base damage decrease and armor piercing damage decrease as well. Water Break. Back at it. All right, Flensing Ruin here. Increase in duration, decrease in Winds of Magic. Decrease in duration here for Overcast. Oh, it has a significant increase in duration and a decrease in its Winds of Magic. Sorry, my bad. But overall, basically just balances them to actually have them be a little bit more viable with all the big scary things on the map. So for Slaanesh, changes have been made to Slaanesh's seduction mechanic to alleviate issues when vassalizing non-chaos factions with damage in Akari's relation with other chaos factions. So seductive influence now increases the affected faction's diplomatic relations with all chaos factions rather than just Slaanesh, and seductive influence no longer unlocks treaties as they are all available by default. With all demons gaining access to diplomacy in some form, we felt like Nakari needed a bit more to distinguish his more diplomacy-oriented playstyle. As such, we boosted his advantage in this area. Increased Nakari's bonus to vassal income and added an additional bonus to a legion point generation, and vassals created by Slaanesh will now never rebel and should always join wars alongside. That's pretty sick. I like that. Now with the Empire, pretty much nothing crazy here. We get Volkmar's new start position, stuff like that in the Books of Nagash, but we don't really have anything in the way of we don't have anything in the way of like really feeling like the Empire. And I have a big video plan on this, on ways we can make the Empire feel like the Empire rather than just being, hey, I'm a good guy against what is now an overtuned badass bad guy. So more to come on that. Tomb Kings here have gotten a bit of a change here as well, especially for their battle. Khalida have always had the option to support both melee and missile units with her area of effect melee abilities and passive missile buffs. Khalida is gaining additional charges for her Venom Staff and a reduction to its cooldown. This should allow her to use it more often, helping her be just as effective at range as she is in melee. And infantry, the skeleton infantry units for Tomb Kings have had their leadership and armor increased across the board, which should keep them in the fight just long enough to be useful. Their costs have also been adjusted slightly to represent their actual value on the battlefield. Monsters are also gaining leadership increases to keep them in the fight for longer, in addition to some small health and defense increases. So, mainly leadership benefits across the board here, as mentioned there. Some damage increases on the monsters too, it looks like. But by and large, just trying to keep it so things are still competitive in Warhammer 3 from Warhammer 2. Skeleton Horse Archers and Horsemen getting some pretty big buffs here. Kepra Guard, armor increase and leadership increase, and they're already just so good. The Sphinx of Usek getting a leadership increase and a little bit of hit point increase there. Ushabti's getting leadership. Usirian's Legion of the Netherworld also just across the board benefits here, nothing really going down. Added contact effect Frostbite for them, it's pretty nice with a 42 raw AP damage on them. That is juicy. And overall, a much better look for the Tomb Kings, but I still think that they kind of got shafted pretty hard with Immortal Empires. We'll see how that kind of shakes itself out. For Tzeentch, Remove the battle reinforcement time accuracy effects from Kairos' faction effect, as they are no longer relevant with the removal of reinforcement time uncertainty. Tzeentch factions will no longer use the Unholy Manifestations mechanic on factions in the Chaos Realms if they are not also in the Chaos Realms. And Sartoriel's Watchers, minor faction, will no longer declare war on the Kurgan Warband, as it benefits them to have the Kurgan Warband attacking the Great Bastion. For Vampire Coast, they now kind of benefit from the new Vampire Counts system of summoning things up. Same thing with the Warriors of Chaos, where it's a percentage-based system. But across the board, a lot of bonuses here to Salasha Direfin and her Damned Knights of the Realm, Paladin, and Knights Errant, all the way down to the Questing Knights. Leadership and hit point increases on a lot of other things, though, especially like the Depth Guard getting almost a 1,000 point increase, and they get an additional bonus versus infantry of oh my gosh, added attribute plus 5 damage versus infantry. There we go. Jesus. Down all the way into the Mournguls and Rotting Leviathans, you can see plenty of leadership bonuses here across the board, across all the Rotting everythings. Same thing with Regiments of Renown. Lots of bonuses for them. Just kind of scooping through some of these. Make sure you're checking out the specific ones that interest you the most, because I do not know all of the effects of it all. But for Vampire Counts, they have had a new Raised Dead mechanic where basically their pools scale off Vampiric Corruption in addition to battle sites, giving more reliable access to some units. Tech tree revamp. Free skeletons and zombies are gone, but many other techs have been improved. Updated skills for the Necromancers and Master Necromancers. Improved the early game economy. Updated bloodline effects and access to Mournguls if you own the Vampire Coast DLC. Also, Vlad and Isabella. If you play as Vlad, you get Isabella as a hero. If you play as Isabella, you get Vlad as a hero. Manfred starts in the Southlands, and Helmengor starts in the Southlands, hunting the Books of Nagash. And Helmengorst now starts in the Haunted Forest at the south side of the Darklands, which is actually pretty nice. Across the board, though, just as you would expect, the same thing. Lots of bonuses to make things competitive in 3 from 2. That is kind of the big focus of this, is just kind of bringing things up to snuff there. And again, I'm trying not to spend so much time on all these much larger things here. Warriors of Chaos, we all know about these big changes. Warbands, Chaos Gifts, and Eyes of the God. Dark Fortresses and Norsean Homelands. I've covered everything here in its own video, which you can find linked in the upper right hand corner. Look at that juicy picture of Archaon. Archaon looks so much cooler now. The new mixed spell lore too. So Spirit Leech, Searing Doom, the Burning Head, Flaming Sword of Ruin, Transmutation of Lead, and the Purple Sun of Xerius, which is honestly an awesome kit. That is an awesome kit. So he now is much more fun to play. He's much faster. He's much more disgusting. Also, additions, new item, Armor of Morkar, Weapon Imbuement, Flaming Attacks, and new ability, Paragon of Ruin. Aspiring Champions are amazing. They went up. They doubled in hit points. Melee defense went down, but their melee attack also went down. Their base damage went up, though. AP damage as well. Entity mass went up to 600. But the Aspiring Champions all can now be disgustingly strong through the Warriors of Chaos mechanics. I can go through each and every one of these little tiny things here, but trust me, just jumping into the game, you will feel the Warriors of Chaos being much different. Sigvald now has 10% physical resistance. He removed Deadly Onslaught, Heroic Killing Blow, and Foe Seeker, but added Mortal Blow, Paragon of Excess, and Silver Lash, and he has an ability in his skill tree to get Soporific Musk. The Musk of Slaanesh. The dirty Musk of Slaanesh. You can get that in campaign. But a lot of tweaks here. Everything just increasing or decreasing, mainly to kind of keep them more in range with stuff. A lot of new armors, a lot of new items across the board added in for each respective character here. So make sure you're checking those out. Wood Elves, again, to also facing the same thing. Mostly geared towards their melee attack and increasing it so they can be a faction that can have high damage, quick mobility, low durability. That's kind of the way that they've always really been. Also, the Dryka's Fanatical Resolve has had a kind of change as well. It has a cascading effect. It now does 10% weapon damage and 10 melee attack, up to 15% and 15, then 20 and 20, or 20% and 20. So that just kind of scales with each and every level. So as you can see, that's how that works. Now back into the campaign. And for the most part, I'm not going to go through every single one of these things here. The new realms have been added, new provinces, Middle Mountains, Northern Wastelands, Marches of Corone, as well as Albion. A lot of other changes here as far as starting positions go. Wasian is now available as Grand Cathayan settlement with 10 building slots, because that's kind of the only place Azazel can go to. Kurgan warbands can no longer declare war on most Chaos-aligned factions. Immortal Empires, of course, has been brought into the game, so there's been a ton of stuff here. Added item sets for all Warhammer 1 and 2 Legendary Lords who had 2 or more quest items. Marcus Wolfhart no longer stands with his mouth open during campaign animations, which is just lovely to see. With battles here, collision has been removed from all unit corpses that was causing pathfinding issues, which is interesting. Fixing an issue that would cause the sorceress mounted and the supreme sorceress to T-pose after dying. Story of my life. Several bugged animations in battle, and fixing an issue caused the battle radar to disappear when toggling help during a battle. Older ambush battles, oh my god, this is probably the longest bit of notes I've ever read. Older ambush battle maps have been updated with the new withdraw mechanic. Domination battles have had a huge retooling and they now play way differently. Minor settlement battles are far more infrequent on the battle map, but here is a bunch of new ones that you can take a look at. When you're playing through any kind of custom battles. Major settlement battles as well have been, older factions from Warhammer 1 and 2 now have major settlement battles in the campaign. So they have been added here into the game. Sartosa, Gainvale, Lothern, Nagaron, Ancient City of Quintex, so on and so forth. And then a ton of multiplayer changes here. Map pool update. So we now have some new map pools on here. You can see them all right here for the domination and land battles, which ones are in which pool and how they kind of apply to you. Game changes here for graphics, fix several issues which would result in graphical artifacting, tone down the enthusiastic fire effects of Treekin regiments or renowned unit, improves the visual effect of deployment zones and multiple battle maps. Battle unit banner height normalization. Okay. Normalize the height of banners for all factions across the game. And you can also make them larger and smaller. Some audio changes. All 27 lores now have bespoke casting sounds. Also different graphics for each and every one. The UI overhaul, of course, has come with this patch as well, so it's quite nice. Skirmish versus AI has been changed from versus AI. Let's see, high elf are now displayed as one computer unit. Spellcaster lords and heroes have had their spell lores grouped beneath their base unit archetype to reduce clutter in the menus. The vampires have similarly been grouped by their bloodline. Okay. Warriors cast can now mark their mortal units in custom battles using this menu. Wood Elf tree units can now select their Athaloran, Avaloran, and Wargrove of Woe variants. Okay. And finally, the campaign exclusive sections of the unit roster has been renamed to Extended Roster. All right. In-game UI, remove reinforcement prediction accuracy, of course. A lot of this stuff going into it. Resize the campaign objectives panel to make space for the teleport button. Updated the Greenskin's wall ability icon. Improved the readability cost of the sacrifice of Sotek panel. Fixed an issue which, when canceling a province's commandment, would fail to remove the commandment from play. So a lot of little UI tweaks here and there. Of course, you can now change the color of the UI. It's not just red anymore. And all of those pictures for each faction, whenever you go and like interact with something like taking over a settlement or what have you, has been kind of changed as well. So good to see that. Looking forward. Friday, it changes every aspect of the game. There'll be room for hot fixes in the event of critical issues. The first expected release is Update 2.1, which is already scheduled to arrive in 2 weeks. Note that this will not include any fixed responses to any immediate reports we receive. Come early October, you can look forward to Update 2.2, the first planned release to include adjustments based on your feedback. Okay, lovely. And then the assembly kit, ooh. With an all-new game mode, we know there's a huge community ready to start implementing their own spin style onto the game's style to what the game has to offer. The final piece of the puzzle is the Total War Assembly Kit, which we hope to release on all platforms alongside Update 2.1 or 2.2. So, that's nice to see that we'll get that dev kit sometime in between September and October. 2.2 will also include... we do know we'll be adding some start position adjustments for a few legendary lords, such as Teclis, Scrag, Kairos, and Lithanar, based on initial feedback. Okay, all right. Tzeentch Doom Knight model update. Tzeentch Doom Knights will be receiving a glow up in 2.1 as they get a new model befitting their glory. They're already looking pretty sexy, so I'm stoked on that. 2.1, Warriors of Chaos will get Confederation. We're looking at introducing a limited way for Archaon and Be'lakor to confederate other Warriors of Chaos. Ooh! Then the Ultimate Crisis mode. Following the addition of various endgame scenarios in the game, 2.1 will add a toggleable option to trigger all endgame scenarios in the same save game if you so desire. While this will not be toggled by default, it's a great option for players who want to add... Ooh, that's pretty nice. Here's a list of 2.1. Tweaking Be'lakor to offer more flexibility, adding missing text to the Hero Academy, adding the correct settlement art for Teotihuacan settlement. Tzeentch Doom Knights will be made available in the recruitment pool for Sigvald, Archaon, Kolek, and Village. Added clarity to the victory conditions for A Grudge Too Far. Oh, recruitment pool. Okay, yeah, you can upgrade them as it is, but you need the recruitment pool to... Okay, I see what it's saying here. A Grudge Too Far event will envision ensuring the Master Engineer a high priority pick for garrison forces. Be'lakor will now be available in custom and multiplayer battles. Okay. So those are the thickest Total War Warhammer patch notes I've ever read. There's so much to go through, guys. That just mentally exhausted me. I have a video to do, too, after this, so be on the lookout for the Is It Right For You style video of the Warriors of Chaos. That'll be coming out tomorrow morning, as well as another stream for Be'lakor. And if you have any questions, any observations off of patch 2.0, Immortal Empires, Champions of Chaos, Blood for the Blood God, any of it, let it be known in the comment section below. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. I think the biggest thing from 2.1 is that we're getting Warriors of Chaos Confederation. Got to catch them all. It's either Archaon or Be'lakor. Love to hear that. But as always, like I said, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one, and take care.